Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is Eisenherz and draws are ruining cEDH, especially cEDH tournaments. If you look at the last 6 months of cEDH tournaments on EDH Top 16, you will see that some tournaments have had a remarkably high draw rate of 25 to 30%. The largest tournament this month, the Fishbowl San Diego, even had a draw rate of 34% in the Swiss rounds. If this huge amount of games can't find a true winner, and people can force draws all the time, and then use these draws to sneak their way into the top 16, what does a cEDH tournament even prove? Apparently not who the best pilot is and who wins the most games. This is bad. It proves that cEDH is to some extent a broken format, and it ultimately negates the whole reason to play this format competitively in tournaments. There are 3 main reasons why this happens so often in cEDH tournaments. The first reason is a broken card pool due to years of blatant mismanagement. We have a ton of broken cards that are incredibly trigger heavy and were never designed for 4-player games such as Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe and Orcish Bowmasters. Additionally, we have a ton of flash enablers that allow players to push back their win attempt and try to win on top of other players' win attempts. Nobody has to use their main phases as a window to win anymore, because any phase on any turn is a potential window to win. Furthermore, the broken interaction of draw engines, trigger-heavy cards and flash enablers gets supported by the sheer amount of free interaction this format has access to. Together, this broken card pool of draw engines, trigger-heavy cards, flash enablers and free interaction undermines the whole concept of resource depletion and leads to a pushback of win attempts, incredibly large stacks, seemingly endless turns, as well as the potential to force draws on almost any win attempt. If everyone can draw off every game action, if every draw creates more triggers, if every phase is a window to present wins on top of wins, and if every win attempt can be stopped with multiple pieces of free interaction, it will obviously make it impossible for anyone to finish the game. The second reason is that the logistics of organizing a tournament force TOs to set strict time limits. These time limits paired with the broken interaction of the aforementioned cards means that some games simply can't finish in time, because everything just takes too long. But a new round has to start at some point, so the tournament can eventually end. The third and probably most important reason is the fact that, with the currently used 5-1-0 system, draws will always lead to a better tournament result than losses, because they are being rewarded with points. This system, where wins grant 5 points, losses grant 0 points, but a draw still grants you 1 point, is being abused by players all the time. And I'm guilty of this myself. For example, anyone who won their first 2 games during the Swiss rounds can now intentionally draw games in round 3 to 5 in order to get an almost guaranteed spot in the top 16 with 13 points. Similarly, anyone can just use the aforementioned broken mechanics of instant speed wins and trigger heavy cards and free interaction to force a game into a draw in order to secure an additional point for their tournament standing. And again, I'm guilty of this myself. To fix this, Wizards could ban some cards, which most people want to avoid as much as possible. Additionally, tournaments could be organized to be 2-day events so that the Swiss rounds can play longer games, which is definitely cool, but also makes participating in regular tournaments impossible for people with a life and responsibilities outside of playing MTG. One thing, however, that could potentially be a really efficient fix for this problem of increasing amounts of draws is to change the rating system used in Swiss rounds. As mentioned before, currently most cEDH tournaments use Top Deck's 5-1-0 system, in which wins grant 5, draws grant 1 and losses grant 0 points. People that win games will be paired with people that have a similar win-to-loss ratio, and your chances of getting a good seed in the pot are slightly influenced by your win rate. So the better the win rate, the less likely it is for you to get a seed 1 or seed 2 in a pot. Most of us tournament players know this system, and as with all things in life, it has its pros and its cons. So on the pro side, wins are heavily being rewarded with 5 points. Players are paired with opponents of a similar skill level, and the system is very transparent and easy to understand. On the con side, draws are also being rewarded, which is abused by forcing draws or intentionally drawing games, and this leads to the fact that less games find an actual winner. In an attempt to fix the issues the 5-1-0 system has and to reliably assess the relative skill levels of players during the Swiss rounds, some tournament organizers have started to use Hareruya's so-called God of Commander system, which is also known as a point wager system. Instead of simply granting 0 points for a draw in order to not incentivize forced or intentional draws, this system has a completely different approach. With the point wager system, every player starts the tournament at 1000 points and puts 7% of their current points into the pool at every round. The winner then gets all the points that were in the pool. and if no winner can be determined, all the points in the pool are lost. This means that draws are actually bad for all players. The seeding order in Swiss rounds is completely random, so that you have a chance to come back after losing the first game or two. If you lost a few games, you obviously put less points into the pool, and if you won a few games, you put more points into the pool. That way, any player has the chance to snag a decent amount of points in the later rounds of the game, and winning against strong opponents means more than winning against weaker opponents. Furthermore, the points any player has are not public, so that any kind of arrangements like intentionally drawing games can be avoided. This also means that the point wager system is not just a 5-1-0 system with draws being rewarded 0 or -1 points. The random pairing system and the fact that points are not being disclosed to the players during the Swiss rounds make a fundamental difference. Of course, this system also has its pros and cons. On the pro side, wins against stronger opponents matter more than wins against weaker opponents. Also, draws are punished, so intentional draws and forced draws can't be abused to trick the system. On the con side, there is much less transparency for the players and the system overall is more complicated. Also, wins matter less overall when compared to the 5-1-0 system. The Hallelujah or God of Commander system is already a step in the right direction. But my friends from cEDH Germany, who are hosting the semi-regular cEDH BallonCon tournament series, have created a modified version of the Hallelujah system, which tries to fix a few more issues that occur in multiplayer free-for-all tournaments. While the general concept of starting with 1000 points, wagering 7% of your points every round, random pairings and hidden standings stay the same, some additional changes have been implemented. For example, the seed order will slightly increase or decrease the amount of points you wager in any round, because as is commonly known, seed order in cEDH has a huge impact on the win rate. So seeds 1 and 2 wager slightly more than 7% of their points, and seed 3 and 4 wager slightly less than 7% of their points. Also, in case of a draw, the points are not lost, but evenly distributed between all players so that stronger players are slightly punished and weaker players are slightly benefiting from the draw. This way, draws are still slightly better than losses, but can't be abused by players with more points to trick their way into the top cut, especially when they have a good seeding position. Finally, at the end of the Swiss rounds, there is a final step referred to as round shuffling that balances everyone's points, because you might have won against a good player early on and not played against them after they earned more points in the later rounds. Hence, gaining less points from winning against that player in an early round than winning against that player in a later round. This system has already proven to be successful in what it tries to fix. For example, the average seed order is much closer to its ideal 2.5, and the amount of draws has gone down from around 30% with the 5-1-0 system to now under 25% with the German point wager system. Of course, those numbers are still not perfect and draws will never be at 0%, but I think it is definitely another step in the right direction and can lead to further developments and adjustments to continuously work on an increasingly more optimal rating system. On the pro side, we see that wins are worth more against stronger players than they are against weaker players. Also, draws are bad for stronger players and better for weaker players, and there are lots of mechanisms to ideally rate player performance. However, on the con side, we see that the system is much more complex than either TopDeck's 5.0 or Hallelujah's point wager system, which leads to less transparency. Also, draws still grant points, and hidden standings will always benefit well-connected players. As a closing thought on this issue of draws and optimal pointing system, I think it is necessary to address that no matter which system you prefer and which system proves to be more suitable over time to determine the overall skill level of players and rate their performance during a tournament, we need to acknowledge that there is a game design aspect to this we do not have any control over, a logistical factor that the TOs can't change, and fundamentally a cultural factor of players forcing draws at any opportunity simply because they won't accept or risk a loss and will take any chance to draw a game if it makes for a better placing in a tournament. This too has to change, but it will probably only do so if the framework of the tournament rules doesn't incentivize players to draw games whenever possible. And that's it. Please share your thoughts on the increasing amount of draws in cEDH tournaments and the different rating systems in the comment section. You can find links to detailed explanations of all the systems I mentioned in the description box below. As always, thanks for watching my videos. Make sure to like, share, subscribe and become a Patreon. It really helps me out to push my channel. This is Eisenherz and auf Wiedersehen.